Alright, hopefully this works. I'm on my own tonight and I'm making this recording about how to make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is amazing and it should be part of your daily diet. It originates more than probably 2,000 years ago from China, and it has a huge number of benefits. The fermentation process actually encourages the growth of probiotics in what you create. So it's full of probiotics, which is why it's so good for you and your gut health, and everything that comes from that. A healthy gut means a healthy brain as well. Research is indicating that now. It's full of vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 leads to stronger bones, so healthy bones, full of fibre, great for your immune system, improves digestion, like I said, your gut health. Can even lose weight. Studies have shown that it helps reduce the risks of cancer, improves heart health. What more can I tell you? It's pretty amazing. So we don't need an awful lot for this. Red cabbage is what you want. I've got some carrots, some garlic, some ginger, some herbs from my garden, and a little bit of non-iodized salt. And that's pretty much it. On the start of this red cabbage, the outer leaves we're going to take off, but before we do, you can see the sort of white on the leaves. That is actually, some of the natural yeasts and bacteria that we're wanting to use. The outer leaves we're not going to use in the sauerkraut though, but don't throw them away. We might use them, or we are going to use them a little bit later in the process. I won't use all of them, but I'll use some of them later in the process. And what I don't use, my chooks are going to enjoy as well. So I'm going to take it back to just having just the inner section here. A nice sharp knife. And we're ready to make a start, just about. So doing a whole cabbage, we want to take out the core. The easiest way to take out the core is to cut it in half and then into quarters, and then we'll work on each quarter. We can take out the heart of this. On each one, so I'm just slicing out that white bit. Okay. Alright, and we're ready to start processing this. So I've got a clean glass bowl. It is kind of important that things are clean for this, because we're fermenting. We don't want to introduce molds and other things that are in the environment straight away. We want to give the yeast and the bacteria a chance to get onto doing the fermentation and not other things that are in the environment. So nice clean jars are what I've got. I've rinsed them in hot water, a little bit of detergent. So I've got a couple of them. I've also got a couple little containers as well. These are like kids' food. So I'm going to use them in a little bit as well. There's lots of ways that you can do that last process. I'll talk about that a bit later. So the first thing is you need to chop this up nice and fine. You can use a mandolin to do this if you wanted to. I prefer to do it by hand. This might take me a little bit of a time. Consider maybe stopping in a minute. You guys can just watch, that's okay. So there we go, there's one lot done, and I'll place that into my bowl. Some people use a shredder. You can even buy a cabbage shredder, which is basically a big shredder for a big cabbage. I've tried shredders and I've tried mandolins, and I come back to doing it by hand. It doesn't need to be super fine. The finer you cut it, the easier the next part of the process is, which is the sort of massaging of it. We don't add any water if we can help it. There is plenty of water in the cabbage itself, and so we should be right to just use the water from the cabbage. It just requires a little bit of patience and a little bit of hand strength. So I've almost done my 4/4. Looks like a lot in the bowl, but yeah, when we start massaging it, that will reduce in volume. I am going to use a grater, I reckon, for my carrots. It's just a slightly quicker process, and some people prefer to cut them by hand as well. You can add all sorts to sauerkraut. Today I'm doing carrot, ginger and garlic. Often I love to add beetroot. Beetroot is fantastic in sauerkraut. I just don't have any at the moment. So that's the cabbage done. And I'm just going to work on the cabbage to start with. I'm not going to add anything else, and then I'll add the other ingredients after I've worked on this. This is going to take about 10 minutes or so. So I'll show you and then I'll pause the video and we'll come back. You don't need to watch me doing this for 10 minutes. But basically you just need to massage this for 10 minutes in your hands. There's a number of other ways that you could be doing this. Some people use a rolling pin to hit it. And you know, that can be fairly effective as well over time. That's going to bruise. You're trying to bruise all the cabbage. For me, I prefer just to get my hands in and give it a turn and just work your way through. It's a nice hand exercise. So I'll do this, and you keep on massaging. It's already starting to bruise, and I can feel it softening. You know, you want to keep on going. Take that crisp hardness out of the cabbage, make it really soft. And you're going to keep on going until there is a huge amount of water. So you basically, all the cabbage is sitting immersed in water. And once we've got to that stage, we're ready to move on to the next thing. So I'll pause the video and I'll do this and I'll come back to you in about 10 minutes. Okay, so I haven't finished, but it's dawned on me. So I've been doing this for maybe 5 minutes here, and I've missed a very important part of the process. And so I think this isn't breaking down as much as what I thought it should. And then I remembered I hadn't added salt. Salt's kind of important to help this process. Your hands will get a bit purple. That just washes off pretty easily with water. And if you find that you're just not getting as much out of it as what you're expecting, you can add it into a jar, which is what I did before. Chucked it in a jar and then use your rolling pin to really get in. Yeah, I think the fact that I'm doing this at 10 o'clock at night, maybe that's why I forgot this very important step. So probably for a whole cabbage, whatever that volume is, probably about 2 generous teaspoons is going to do the job. Also, the more finely that you chop it, the faster it'll break down. Seems obvious. And also, the fresher the cabbage is, the faster it will also break down. And so I'll pause this again, give me another few minutes, and then hopefully that salt and that salt will help to sort of draw the moisture out of the cabbage. Okay, we're back. So I've had a go at massaging that, cleaned up just a little bit, and I've also grated some carrots and started dicing some garlic. I haven't used all my carrots. I want to show you something with them in a little bit. With the garlic, a good way to prepare that, you could use a mincer if you wanted one. I like using the flat part of the knife, giving it a bit of a bruising, and then it's ready to sort of slice up and make that into. I like it being in little, diced up, nice and finely chopped, nice and finely, and then I'm happy with that. And so I've got some garlic, I've got some carrot. I've just used 3 carrots there. With your ginger, a trick with the ginger is to use a spoon. Some people prefer the back side of the spoon. I like using the front part of the spoon, and that's a really easy way to take the skin off of your garlic, and then that will be ready to cut up as well. So that can go into my compost. And I'm just going to slice that nice and finely. That's a lot of ginger, but I do like a lot of ginger and garlic in the sauerkraut. It's awesome. Alright, so and I've got some herbs there as well. I'll show you what I've got. You should be able to see it through the glass bowl. When I push with my hand, you see all the liquid coming out of that, so it's pretty liquidy. And now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients to this, mix it in and massage it for another few minutes, just to break some of that down, and also obviously just to include it all in. So in here I've got some parsley, mainly parsley, got a little bit of basil, brain's not working very well, oregano and thyme in there, so I'm just going to tip all that in as well. I'll sort of just loosely break it as I put it in there, and then start mixing it in. And so I'll mix this again for maybe another 4 or 5 minutes, and then come back and I'll show you the probably the most important part is sort of how we finish it and how we get it processing. So stay tuned. Alright, I wish I had smell cam on this because this is smelling amazing. And I've been massaging it for a couple of minutes. You can see the amount of liquid that's coming out of this now. This is fantastic. Okay, so that's ready to put in a jar. As it turns out, it's produced only about 1 jar's worth. It's messy business making sauerkraut, so be prepared for that. I'm just going to start putting that into a jar. Nice wide mouth jars obviously are going to work well because the ease of which you can put stuff in it. I guess you could use like a food funnel or something like that. But I'm just grabbing this stuff and popping it in. And then we only want to fill it, probably we're going to leave 5 or more, 6 or 7 centimeters of space to the top, because it will expand a little bit as it ferments, and if it expands too much then it will go outside of your jar. We will be sealing the jar, but every day we want to be giving a little bit of fresh air to our bacteria, our yeast. Alright, so I've got a lot of lovely juice. I'm going to add that in. not to waste any. And then if you find that you're still, you see that juice rising, beautiful. If you find that you still need a little bit more massaging in here, and you can get in there with your fists, you can also, wow, it hasn't made as much as what I thought. You can also use your rolling pin in the jar itself and really get in there and push it down that way as well if you find that easier. So I've done too good a job here, and it's really quite low in the jar. So the next thing here is it's important that all of the cabbage and other ingredients stays underneath the liquid level. Everything above the liquid level is susceptible to then bringing in bacteria that we don't want. So I'm just going to push down as much as I can down the outsides. Might just quickly wash my hands and do this again. So I'm pushing everything down. And then the cabbage leaves that we had from before, I'm just going to cut out about the size basically making a little covering for all the veggies and stuff in there, and so that should be able to go in and sit on top, and that's going to help keep things underneath. And then finally something to actually hold it down. And so you could use a carrot. This is probably going to work pretty well for me this time. So I'll put a carrot in there. Can use a jar, and so you put a jar. Ideally that's the sort of height that I was looking for. I was hoping to get a little bit more. So one jar's not quite enough, and then obviously when you put the lid on, it's going to keep that pressed down. Or maybe a glass might be good for me today. See if that's too much, not going to quite fit. I have to find something here to push down on it. Maybe I'll have a go at the carrot. And so it's going to be pushing down, keeping that stuff down. I'll chop a little top off. Alright. See if I've got the right lid. See if that's going to work. So that should work. So I've got a mess to clean up, but then I have my beautiful sauerkraut in here. Before I finish, I'm just going to give that a nice clean on the outside, a dry on the outside. It's important to label your sauerkraut and pretty much everything that you make. I reckon labeling is important so that you know what you've got in there and you know when you made it. So from here, this put it somewhere. The ideal temperature is about 18 degrees and a fairly consistent temperature. And then every day, I'm just getting a text to the right, hang on. Every day you need to burp it. It might take a couple of days for it to start bubbling. And obviously the warmer it is, then the less time it will take. Let's say here, kraut with carrot. garlic, ginger, herbs. And a date today, if I can remember. And so every day, just all you need to do is just open it and close it again. Just let a little bit of fresh air in. After a couple of days, it might start making a sound, a little burping sound. And the longer you leave it, then the more time that it is, the more sauerkrauty it'll get, the more the flavors will develop. Probably I like to leave it out for a couple of weeks, 14, 20 days even, so it's really, the flavors are nice and strong. And then you can seal it and pop it in your fridge. It'll last in your fridge for a while. Generally, I've only made sort of half a batch here. That'll probably last me 2 months. But it will last happily in the fridge for 6 months. It might even last for 12 months. It'll be still fermenting just a little bit in the fridge over time, but not as much as what it does here. And then that's it. That's your sauerkraut. Lots of ways to eat it. You could just have a spoonful of it every morning as part of your routine, or it's fantastic to add to salads. Whenever I make a salad, I put a spoonful or a forkful of sauerkraut into my salads. That's a fantastic way. You can add it into hot things as well, add it into your stir fries or whatever you're cooking. I like adding it in with scrambled eggs, which I have in the morning, some greens, some sauerkraut, some eggs. Fantastic. So go forth and make yourself some beautiful sauerkraut. It is a wonderful thing, and it's so simple, so easy, so cheap to make, and so amazingly good for you. And tune in again for another one. Thank you. Have fun.